And now, streaming out of Northeast Ohio, representing marks, drunks, and a little bit of kayfabe, AIW Fan Club. It's wrestling and podcasting, previewing and reviewing all motherfucking day. People of the world, I give to you wrestling fucking cheers!
Making your way in the world today takes everything you got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You want to go where you can see that troubles are all the same. You want to go where everybody knows your name.
And welcome back to Wrestling Cheers, where everybody knows your name, especially when you're going for broke. This is Wrestling Cheers, where we like to talk about things going on in Northeast Ohio independent wrestling scene. We preview shows, we review shows, and sometimes we even have interviews along the way. This is a preview for AIW's series premiere of Going for Broke. I am your host, Justin Summers. Well, technically Go for Broke, but whatever. I am your host, Justin Summers, and Wrestling Cheers is brought to you by the Trending Topics Network and Midwest Territory. Please rate, review, and subscribe your ever listened fine podcast, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Pandora, and also Podbean, WrestlingCheers.podbean.com. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, Facebook.com/WrestlingCheers, Twitter.com/WrestlingCheers, and Instagram.com/WrestlingCheers. Email, if you so choose, desire, WrestlingCheers@gmail.com, and we have the merch store over at whatamaneuver.net. Like I said before, and I stumbled upon, this is a preview episode of Go for Broke by AIW. We are finally previewing AIW, but there's no matches announced. So we're going to try our best and see what we can squeeze in the amount of time possible. First up on this episode, we have Charly Butters.
Hey, man. I told you this whole time it was a series.
I wanted it to be just like month shows that would set up different. We got a show out of it.
Hey, we got AIW back. That's all I care about. That hole in my life that has been gone since the pandemic is now filled once again. And
we're gonna have it weekly, not just.
Yes.
I mean, we have the live shows coming up too. We'll talk about that, but we have this show every single week for what might be, I think, at least 2 months. They've said.
I've heard 10 episodes.
On the AIW podcast, they didn't exactly put down a final of like, this is how many episodes. There was like, well, it might be, it's going to, I think at least be, maybe it said at least be 10, which made it. No,
Dom said specifically 10, but obviously it can go more than that. They've recorded 10 so far. Okay. So is all we know.
So that's really questionable. But before we go any further, we also have making his return to the show, but he's never been on a preview or review. We have Josh Goldstein.
Mr. Summers, Mr. Butters, thank you for having me. Looking forward to talking about this. I don't know how it got off the ground. Something mysterious happened, but I'm looking forward to discussing this show immensely. I can't wait.
Those wonderful, mysterious benefactors graced us in the time of need with their presence and delivered unto us Go for Broke.
All thanks to a great man by the name of Sam Goldstein and like some brother of his.
I don't even know who that is. We look forward. There's nothing we like more than seeing AIW succeed. So I'm glad that we got a chance to be a part of it and see this program jump off the ground. And I honestly I can't wait to see what they've put together, because it is, I think, just the way they've talked about it and the amount of effort they put into it. I think it's going to be awesome.
So people know, for the next, as we kind of already mentioned, the next 10 weeks, we will be reviewing every single episode of Go for Broke. And actually, little small peek behind the curtain, not only will we be reviewing it, but literally right after it goes off the air, we will be starting our review episode. and it will come out as normal every single Thursday. But this episode, obviously, this is a Wednesday when you're hearing this, should be. So this will come out a day before the first episode, and I think I have it set. Okay, I don't have the calendar ahead, but we will be previewing, or we will be reviewing episode 1 2 days afterwards, and then that should come out the Monday after. But other than that, every single review will be on Thursday, the regular time that these episodes get Wrestling Cheers gets released. But because of the first 2 episodes of how close they're actually going to be, that we have to scramble and come up with a little bit different. And us doing this preview of something that we technically have no idea what to expect. No matches have been announced, and we don't even know who all the participants are. It's just an open book of questions. So, what are you expecting from this entire show, Butters?
Man, so we have the concept of the Biggins Bucks. We have the concept of they have to earn as much as they can by winning matches to get a better seed in the Biggins tournament, which if you win, you get a title shot of your choosing. So with all that being said, I mean, there's going to be some real just frantic. I think there's going to be like a lot of frantic of trying to win any way possible. I think the rules are going to be out the window for a lot of this. I feel like they're going to do whatever they can to get these wins, get these Biggins Bucks as fast as they can. Time is not on their side. So, I mean, I feel like it's going to be real frantic.
How about you, Jay Gold?
So let's lay it out. Let's think about exactly what we're going back to, right? Let's talk about exactly where AIW is at this point in its, and I think we can call it its rebirth, right? So you have a double champ right now. You have Mr. Bishop, Josh Bishop and the Rip City Shooters, double champ, Intense and Absolute, and you have PME, and those are your champs. I think you have what I'm looking forward to most, I think, is the guys who are knocking on that door to, let's talk about what it was like in the 80s and 90s when you won an Intercontinental belt. You said to yourself, that guy won the Intercontinental title, and his jumping point, next stop, is the world title. So I think you have a lot of guys in AIW who are ready to get to the Intense title and then challenge for the Absolute title. So I am really looking forward to a handful of those guys. I'm looking forward to Derek Dillinger. I think Derek Dillinger is going to win the whole thing. That's my, and I honestly, I'm that hyped about his prospects, but I love what some of these guys are going to bring to this tournament. I love thinking that maybe Twan Tucker might poke his face in there. I love thinking that Wes is going to be there. I love thinking maybe you break up PME and they jump in there and you have a couple of singles matches. I love thinking Colin could be in there. Guys, you're going to have those guys who are just on the fringe of super stardom. You have maybe Justice gets in there, and then Justice wins a bunch of matches and he gets his rematch for his heavy, for the Absolute title. I really like how many ways you can go with this, and I cannot wait to see how it's going to play out. There are so many guys that need or are ready for the next step, and that's what I think this show is going to do. It's going to help those guys get there.
Let's talk about our predictions for winners. Just bold shot in the dark right now. I think I've mentioned it. I really want Dom to win. I kind of want him, like, not only obviously to win it all, but if he cashes in towards the title, I want it to be the tag titles. So you know what that means. Will that happen? Probably not. But if there's anything that I would love to see in AIW, because imagine Violence is Forever in AIW with the great tag team division we have. Oh my God, like, just feed that to me every single month and I'm going to be so happy. There's a great division we have here.
I agree with you. I think there's so many ways you can go with this. I honestly, I'm going with Derek just because I think he's ready to jump off. And I think him and Ziggy, I know how much you guys love Ziggy. I think she's she's fantastic in as what she brings for the production. I would love to see Bishop split those belts. I am all for, double champs, but even the Ultimate Warrior dropped the IC title when he won. I think it's an opportunity for another guy, because look, Bishop had the Intense title, then he jumped off and he got the Absolute title. I think Derek's that guy. He's next. He's big. He's been honing his craft. Dom, look, we love Dom. Dom could win this anytime and take any belt, but I really think Dom is a star. And I think if you ask me, and this is just from strictly a fan and me overthinking it, is I think Derek's the guy to jump in and do the next step. That's just that'll be who I'm gonna fight with till the end. I think Derek's gonna win the whole thing.
So I feel like there needs to be a restructuring, because for the longest time, the Intense title was the Intense division. It was all about hardcore matches, hardcore rules. There were no rules. And if we're going to do something different with that and make that the, quote unquote Intercontinental title of AIW, there's not that big of a division for that outside of a handful of guys. So, but there's a very hungry division of guys that are on the cusp of getting to that level. You got your Lee Moriartys, you got your Derek Dillingers, you got Trey Lamar, you got guys like that, AJ Gray, PB Smooth. So I feel like there's people there that, you got Dom as well. I don't want to forget him. But you got people that are on that cusp that maybe aren't, ready for the Absolute title, but they are definitely in the hunt for, a secondary division title. So if we're going to rebrand that Intense division to a more standard wrestling division, and kind of, I know it's always floated back and forth between depending on who was champion. But I would like to see that be more established if we're going to go that route down the road. And I don't have a specific person that I think is going to win. I think both Dom and Derek are both great choices. I don't know if they're either going to be on the show or in the hunt for these. I mean, I would assume they would be, but we don't know. So I would like to say that maybe, Lee Moriarty is on the show and in the hunt for these. Can't say, but he would probably be a very good option coming off his trilogy with Alex Shelley.
What about Justice? Can Justice get back in? I mean, he lost those belts once. I mean, he defended it so often.
Right.
And I mean, you mentioned how the landscape is changing. Look at what happened since November. No more Eddie. Or can Eddie come back? Tom Lawler? Can Tom Lawler come back? Does MLW let him come back? Can Tom Lawler still run a full-time schedule? Can AIW say, Tom Lawler can have these belts? No MJF, there's a bunch of guys who are not, I don't know if I think Dr. Dan retired. I mean, Faye Jackson just announced her retirement. So this is the time for a lot of the next level guys who, when you went to the show, Trey Lamar, Derek, Don Danhausen's gone, but Eddie only, right? Is it, Bobby Beverly, Eric Ryan. There are a lot of guys who it's time to shine, and can you, if we step back for a second, and you guys are when I look at you guys, I think of, so you're like encyclopedias when it comes to matches and divisions, and Summers is like a savant. Look at where we are now in the landscape of professional wrestling, especially in Cleveland. Look how many guys have signed elsewhere or retired or not around. And it opens the door for so many opportunities now, for so many guys to get those opportunities. And also it's sad because we have to say goodbye to guys that we never got a real chance to say goodbye to when you think about it, right? Mm. So we're in a place where the best part of Go for Broke is that anything is going to happen, literally anything. And we don't have, none of us, and that's probably great. And the worst part about wrestling fans are spoilers, and we don't have any. You know what I mean? We're at a point where everything that's going to happen is going to be brand new. So I think there's so many like really fun scenarios that we could sit here after the first episode. And I think as a preview show, this is fun right now just to kind of speculate. But I think after the first episode, we're going to sit down and go, guys, look at what is going on now. Look at where we are and look at where we're going. And I think by the time that shows start at the end of the month of April, who knows in the 4 episodes that we're going to see before those shows start, where we're going to be as far as who's going to have the bucks. That's the coolest part of this whole thing.
All right.
And also, Charlie, this isn't about being right. It's about taking a stab in the dark. So saying like, well, I don't know who's going to just take a stab in the dark. Who in your gut do you think's going to win, or who would you like to see win, whether you know they're going to be in it or not?
I kind of went with Lee Moriarty on that. So,
which that would be awesome. What belt would do you think he would go for? I mean, would it be the Intense or would it be the Absolute?
That's a good. I don't know, man. I would probably say he would probably go for the Absolute. I mean, it all depends on where he wants to go. I mean, he's the IWTV champion right now, so why not go for the biggest belt in the company?
Yeah, and that brings up another question too. If you say Lee goes for the Absolute, who exactly is contending for the Absolute title right now? Because guys, we haven't seen an AIW show since November when Bishop won. Who's next? Does Justice get a rematch at a later date? Because don't all champs get a rematch? And then who is next? I mean, let's really. I mean, if you guys have seen so much talent come in and out of AIW, I mean, you've seen way more than me. I've been around you guys for about 4 years, maybe a little less. Who is next? Where's the next monster? Where's the next heavyweight coming from? So you have Bishop, you have Justice, you have Lawler, you have Moriarty now because he's got that IWTV title. But then where do we look as fans as who the next heavyweight contender is? Who is it? Like I mean, now that we're having this conversation and I sit here and talk to you guys out loud, who's next? I mean, I have no idea in my head who the next heavyweight contender is. Do you guys have an opinion on who that would be?
Gage, Manser, Manders.
Manders. You think Manders is ready?
I mean, he can contend. Obviously, he can contend in Southern Underground Pro. I don't see why he couldn't contend at AIW. I mean, do we know if he's on these? Maybe he racks up a series of wins and really shows off, and he's ready for that spot. We don't know. So, I mean, anything can happen with this. That's the great thing. And he all it takes is just a couple wins and you're right there in contention for that shot. So, I mean, you can really build any contender pretty quick. I know AIW doesn't do it that way. Usually we have these nice long stories that go, a year, 2 years to get to a point, but there's plenty of short-term stories that can be told in the interim while we're getting back into the swing of things. And setting up, the longer story down the road. So there's, I mean, outside of those names, I mean, all these guys can step up. I mean, Dillinger could be, next in line for this. They have enough homegrown talent that everybody can move up to that division, and there'd still be a ton of guys left over that, maybe didn't make these tapings that are still considered regulars that can fight over the scraps. Never know.
And that I agree with. I think you rattled off a bunch of names. I completely kind of spaced out for a second, realizing that Gage is going to be healthy. Thinking Mance is ready because Mance is ready to go. I mean, Mance is top tier talent. So, you're right about that. Dom is top tier talent. Manders, the way he looks, if Manders is on this, because I don't know if he's on it, but if he's on it, a guy like that rattles off 2 or 3. All you need is if they're going to, let's say there's 10 episodes and each guy is going to get an opportunity maybe 4 times, 5 times. So if you can rattle off 3 wins and get maybe a tag team win here or there, or you lose, or you get, if you go 4-1, let's say in 5 matches, or let's say 3-2, 3-2 should get you into the tournament, shouldn't it? I mean, if you have an over 500 record, you should be able to get into the tournament. I don't know how many guys they're going to put in the tournament, but I would say a record of 3-2 should be good enough to get you enough bucks to get in the tournament. Besides the fact that you're holding off people from stealing all your money, but if you guard your money properly and you could take 3 wins out of 5, I think you could get into that lower seed area.
AIW just recently updated their website, and there is a current roster page that we know is somewhat current. There's going to be a few discrepancies in here where you can go, are they current? We don't know, some more than others. So let me go over this roster. Alphabetically, Alex Shelley, Arthur MacArthur, Big Twan Tucker, Bobby Beverly, Brian Carson, Calvin Tankman, Chase Oliver, Cheech, Chuck Stone, Colin Delaney, Colt Cabana, Danhausen, Derek Dillinger, Dominic Guarini, Eddie Kingston, Eddie Only, Eric Taylor, All Ego Ethan Page, Ethan Wright, Faye Jackson, Flip Kendrick, Frankie Flynn, Jocelyn Navarro, Joshua Bishop, Joshua Prohibition, Kaplan, Kikutaro, Lee Moriarty, Levi Everett, Little Guido, Louis Linden, Mance Warner, Marino Tenaglia, Marion Fontaine, Matthew Justice, M-Dog Matt Cross, Mikey Montgomery, Mr. Brickster, Nasty Russ Myers, Spider Nate Webb, Nick Gage, Nick Stapp, Parker Pierce, Philly Collins, PB Smooth, Swoggle, TKD, T-Money, Filthy Tom Lawler, Trey Lamar, VSK, Wes Barkley, Wheeler Yuta, and Ziggy, I don't remember if I'm pronouncing this right, Heim. I believe it's Ziggy Heim, right?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay. So that
Jewish wrestling spirit animal, yes.
So obviously that's not everybody that's in it, but we know this is considered the current roster. So it's going to be people within that list. Like obviously we're not going to see Colt Cabana. We're not going to see Danhausen. We're not going to see Ethan Page. And we know we're not going to see, we're not going to see Faye Jackson. There's a bunch of other ones for other reasons we won't see, but anybody here would have a possibility.
I like Trey Lamar. I think that I forgot about Trey Lamar's, ability there. I think Trey Lamar is amazing. I think he deserves a lot of attention. And I think there's a few matches that honestly I would love. I don't know if you know, Justin, but is Chase Oliver still hurt? Because I would love to see Chase Oliver, Trey Lamar again. I would love to see, Kaplan go again for a little while. I'd like to see. There's a few matches that I honestly would look forward to if I got to see, Trey Lamar against maybe Wes Barkley. That would make me. I would love that. I would love to see a guy or Nick Stapp, get opportunities on this show. They don't necessarily have to win, but will this show shine a light on some of these guys? I think maybe you'll see it. Maybe you'll see a guy like Nick Stapp get more of an opportunity, right? Everybody loves that guy. I mean, he's been on TV. He's been at AIW. He's put in time, and I think a guy like that can wrestle 2 or 3 times on the show. It doesn't matter if he wins. And he could get, some really good buzz going. I think that's what's cool about this. You have so many guys you can put it, what were some of the rules? If they wrestle in a tag team match, they still get, it's the same amount of bucks. There's a bunch of different rules. Can you imagine a tag match with like Chase Oliver, TKD, Nick Stapp, and then versus, maybe even Wheeler Yuta on there, who said Wheeler Yuta couldn't win, get some bucks there. So I think just getting their faces and winning some of these matches and then getting into the tournament will be the key for some of these guys. Cause some of these guys aren't going to win. I mean, Nick Stapp's not going to win the whole tournament. I love him. He's a great wrestler, but there's a lot of guys who are on another level. So I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud from like, if you were going to do like a March Madness type bracket, thinking who could get there. I can think a lot of these guys can get there. It's just a matter of, can they win it? I don't know. I'm just being realistic. I don't know if a guy like Nick Stapp can get through PB Smooth, an AJ Gray, a Tom Lawler on his way to the end. You know what I mean? There's just so many variables.
Do you know who's not on the current roster? And they are listed in the alumni, and it's like, oh shit. I mean, but it makes sense. We haven't seen him in like almost 2 years in AIW. Tim fucking Donst. Where's
he been?
Fuck if I know. Like, I don't want to say he stepped away from wrestling, but I think he wrestled a little bit. But I mean, obviously the pandemic didn't help anything, because even with AIW, a lot of people that were used weren't from further away. Like, we haven't seen, Nick Stapp in AIW since the pandemic. But even before that, it had been close to 9 months, because I want to say Absolution was his last show.
That was him versus what? Versus Dom, right? At Absolution?
Yeah, Dom put him through the table, the door table at the end after he made Tim Donst quit when he went to stick him with the.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's if you go through that roster, I mean, even if Chase Oliver is healthy, I could see him, doing something really special. He came back in great shape. He came back, physically he was ready. I think he got hurt again, which was sad. But I mean, a guy like that, if he's healthy, I'd love to see him, continue on. I mean, AIW consistently puts out guys who are ready and who are TV ready. And I think there's a handful of these dudes who are, who could absolutely do some damage in the tournament if they could get in. I mean, I don't even Brickster. Brickster could go far. So the show is going to bring a dynamic to this podcast where we get to speculate each week. That's going to be a lot of fun.
What I'm curious about as well is, okay, so you earn these Biggins bucks. Can you trade these Biggins bucks? Maybe, you want somebody out of the way, out of your tournament, so you got to worry about them. So maybe you pay some of your Biggins bucks to somebody else that's not doing so well in the tournament to make sure that person loses a couple times. I mean, there's all kinds of interesting stuff that can happen with the money. So,
I mean, production wise, I'd like to see how they do the backstage segments. Remember that show Battle Dome? I would love for it to have a feel like Battle Dome. Like, there's backstage segments that are all, that are filmed and things, and then they duke it out in the ring. Then like they take it to the ring. I think that would be awesome. Like a Battle Dome feel to it. And I don't know if we got enough credit. That show got enough credit throughout the years, but I think the idea itself could be a lot of fun. I don't know if you guys even remember it, but almost like an American Gladiators with a backstage, twist to it, which would be kind of cool. Or Knights and Warriors. I don't know if you guys ever remember that one. That was on too. The same on WPX9 or whatever that channel was for me. Knights and Warriors was the same type of. It was some kind of actors, but they stayed in character after the events were over, and it was great. So I think there's so many avenues you can go, and they're the only ones doing it. I mean, that's something that as a fan of AIW and as as a fan of what the people in AIW, they're doing something completely different. It doesn't feel like they're just going to give us a title of a show and then doing just a plain wrestling match. It feels like you're going to get something completely different from your typical hour-long weekly wrestling show, and I think that's going to be amazing.
I keep going over like this roster and thinking all the definite possibilities we could see at the end. I do like the idea of like maybe a guy like Chase Oliver, getting a big moment for him. I kind of want to see everything with Biggins bucks is. I kind of want to see somebody steal money. I want to see that fucking happen. Somebody. Well, I don't even just steal. I want to say like maybe like somebody loses their money, drops it or something, and then somebody happens to come along and pick it up. And like to me, like the whole thing of like they have to, keep account of their money makes me think you could potentially have somebody lose their money, because it's not going to be like, okay, we know you won this match, like we're going to be your bank, we're going to calculate everything for you. No. You're responsible for your money, and Mikey, Mikey might drop money.
Well, that's the thing. Is there a banker? I don't know if there's wouldn't it be great if there was like a banker like in Deal or No Deal, who gives out, you finish your match and then you go to like a pay window and you collect your money. Wouldn't that be? I mean, that would be amazing. I would like to see how that plays out. I think, you know, for them to like almost like build up, like there's some dude who's giving these guys the money, whether you don't see who it is, but then it could be like Thorne with like in a room with no light on, and he just slides them a win envelope. Wouldn't that be like, that would be ridiculous. Like you don't see them, but you see like a hand slide through a window and here's your pay window. I mean, I think that would be kind of neat. I'm curious to see how these guys carry around their Biggins Bucks. Because, you know, I myself would like a Biggins Bucks t-shirt, which I probably will get. Justin, maybe I'll get mine quickly. I don't know.
I mean, you order every other shirt really quickly too. Does your daughter want a Wrestling Cheers shirt too? Because she probably look really good in one.
She does want one, actually. She does, and maybe I will after this show. I'll go on and get one.
I know how Danhausen would carry his around. He'd have his sack with the money sign on it. That would be how he carries his Biggins.
See, that's now we're thinking. Shouldn't there be guys walking around with a $ sack and just fill it with money and have to, like, you know, if guys have to protect it, shouldn't they have to carry it to ringside and, you know, put it like in the corner, like when Rey Mysterio would come down with his, like, you know, prayer, you know, he wore like beads. Shouldn't he have to put his like rosary beads? You put your money bag on the side of the ring so that, you know, that's where it is and you have to protect it. Or Mander's taking his hat off and putting it over the ring post. I mean, that would be once we figure out how they're doling out the money, I think then it'll be even better to see how they protect it.
Yeah, and I think like you got to remember too, we do have some people that have managers in AIW. So what's the Duke going to be doing? You going to be wandering around ringside, scouting talent? Maybe he's out there helping the Bitcoin boys pick up wins. I mean, he's a devious guy, so he could be involved. We're going to have Ziggy at ringside. Being in a group or having people to watch your back, I think might help out in this situation.
I think it says that in like the release, like who's going to be, you know, who will protect their money, who's going to do this and that. I think, you know, you have 40 acres, so they have 3 guys. So if you come out with your guy, you know, with one of your partners every time, you're going to protect what's yours. The Rip City Shooters, they're going to come out with each other. They're going to protect what's theirs. You know, I think the tag teams that come out, maybe I don't even know if the tag teams are allowed to be in it, but imagine if like Colin gets to come out with Cheech every time. Like it probably is best to team up with someone so you know that you're protected. But then could somebody on your team turn on you and take your bucks and then get in the tournament, you know, without you? So the possibilities, I feel like talking about this feels totally different than talking about any other wrestling that we've all discussed before. And it's what a wild concept. I think they've really laid it out to a point where you can do a show like this and we will find out, almost like a Marvel, you know, TV show, like a WandaVision or something, where we're going to talk about lore and we're going to talk about almost like mystique, and then something's going to happen and we're going to speculate on it every week. And I think that's a great, you know, nothing better than not knowing what's going to happen.
All right.
Josh said mystique, and that this is how the X-Men are going to get introduced to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
To the AIW universe, mutants are going to come out. That's what we got for Go for Broke.
And you can find that exclusive information on Danhausen's website.
And then that will also lead to Mephisto. Are you excited for Mephisto, Charlie?
Jesus Christ. Oh, no. I'm not excited for him or Deadpool. So let's no.
That's just Deadpool's the only movie that ever got Colossus right, Charlie. Come on now.
I loved the first 2 films, but the Fantastic. New one is directed by this, or be written by the same guy. So I don't have that faith.
Well, I think Justin, as a fan of the Cleveland scene, I think, you know, if they can take Go for Broke and then translate it into the live shows, I think then you'll even have even more, almost like Marvel after credits. When you think about it, if they can bleed go for broke into live shows, I think you're going to have something even more incredible. So selfishly, I don't want any resolution to go for broke to happen until I get to a live show, and then hope that they're still running go for broke matches where guys still have their money, and maybe we can see somebody do something insane live. I think that would be, I think you'd be onto something almost like you have like almost, again, I'll go back to Marvel having their TV universe bleed into their movie universe. And that would be kind of cool if Go for Broke bleeds into the live shows.
Yeah, because I mean, technically, we don't know if these 2 live shows involve anything with the Biggins Bucks. They're all random. We know that nothing will be announced. So maybe they dive into some of the Biggins stuff and we get more stuff that's going on with the show ties into some live events.
I think Thorne mentioned, right, that he wants this to work 2 ways. It could either work as a standalone or it could work as a way to continue the live show. So I think that would be very cool if that concept kind of can play itself out.
I'm kind of wondering what Hello Cleveland and is this something you might be interested in will actually be, because my thing is these could be tapings for future Go for Broke episodes. We just don't know it, and maybe we don't know the balance for everybody and everything, or what can it be? I mean, the fact is we aren't getting a card announced for either of them, and basically we won't be covering them really on the show. There won't be previews for them because the main thing we were going to be covering here is Go for Broke, and I don't know what they're planning on doing with the footage. I mean, I'm guessing maybe it becomes a thing. I'm waiting to hear if they announce something, or maybe I hit up Thorne or somebody in AIW, just be like, what's going on? Because there might not even be live tweeting from this show, from these shows. Because
that's a good point.
Yeah, because these might be, like I said, they might be eventual later, like tapings for later on in the series. We just don't know. So it's added this big cloud of mystery, which I mean, I'm fine with not having cards announced. Actually, I think those are the best. We did the Joey Janela show, which had 1 match announced, but still okay, it was this really cool anticipation, which I have before every single match, where it's okay, who's coming out next? Because that means what match I'm going to see next. But now it's going to be, okay, who's coming out first? Okay, now who's coming out second? And you get a different fan reaction. So
yeah, maybe it's time for us as fans to step back from the culture of spoilers and just maybe we get back to where wrestling was, a surprise again. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we've kind of desensitized ourselves to surprises, to knowing already what's going to happen. And I don't think wrestling in general was ever built on the foundation that the mark knows that they're getting taken, right? So maybe if we decide that we're saying to ourselves, hey, I'm going to go to the show, I'm going to put my phone in my pocket, and I'm going to watch these matches and see how it unfolds. Maybe that's the way we need to go in 2021, as opposed to just going, well, I'm going to go to the show, I know exactly what's happening, and I'm going to just take GIFs the whole show and or pictures and show everybody, instead of just going, well, now you're going to have to watch, And I think maybe that's something we as fans and as loyal fans of AIW, maybe we at this time we owe it to ourselves to sit back and go, let's see how the story unfolds for once. I think too many of us know how the story kind of plays out, and we ruin it in our heads for ourselves. So that's what's cool about Go for Broke, is that we don't know what's going to happen. So every lot now that we're going to these live shows, maybe it's time we just sit back and go, let's just see how it plays out.
I mean, first off, I take pictures, but I post them on Twitter.
Yeah.
for that's kind of a service for people. So if they can't make it,
maybe we don't do that. Maybe we just go, you have to watch the show because there's stuff. I love doing it too. Here, this is where I am. These guys are doing whatever. But maybe Go for Broke changes the way we're going to watch these next 2 shows, only because we won't know what's going to happen.
I mean, yeah, for these next 2 shows, I mean that whole aspect's up in the air. But I was just saying, as a whole, that one reason why I do the do the live tweeting is, I mean, granted, going back to like when I first started doing it, that's back when there was no pay-per-view. There was none of that. It was like either you went to the show or you didn't, and sometimes you couldn't go to every show. But yeah, these two shows, if I end up finding out like these are a taping, there won't be any live tweeting, which that's a load off my back. I mean, the only thing I might do, I might take some notes, but that's pretty much it. But I'm not going to be, having to tag people in fucking tweets. Right.
But I just think in general, Go for Broke is putting us as wrestling fans into a different category. And that's kind of fun. It's fun not to know. And I think that's, the best part about it is that we can sit here and the three of us can kind of, just speculate. And that's fun. I like speculating. I like, then our creative juices get flowing and then their creative juices get flowing. And who knows how it's going to work out. But I do think, these next 10 weeks are going to be a real, treat for us. Our brains are going to be, we're going to look at this and go, this was kind of neat. Like we got a chance to be part of something that's different. And we haven't said something in wrestling has been different in a really long time.
So another thing I was just thinking about is, there was a new class of wrestlers, students that were probably due to come out and have their first, actual matches.
Yeah.
And they didn't get that chance. So, I mean, maybe we see them in the Go for Broke series. So maybe we'll see some brand new, fresh faces. And that's how we're going to be introduced to some of these people and their characters.
Now, these kids are all trained by Dom, right?
I believe Josh Prohibition and Dom, yeah.
Okay, so these are all like these are all guys who you said last year they were supposed to debut.
I would think that, like we were due for a new class, and obviously there just wasn't,
Well, we got to see Jocelyn right at the Collective,
right,
and she really shined. So then I think you're right. Then it's very exciting to think that there's some guys here and there that are gonna pop out at us on our screens.
I mean, the other thing too, like, will we see any women's matches? Because what if too? I mean, this is, if I don't get to see Dom win and become tag team champion, or should say bring back Violence is Forever and then become tag team champions. This is another scenario I would love to see. Have Ziggy win. And you know what belt she's going to challenge for? The women's. Shayna can't defend it. So boom, she becomes fucking champion.
You know what's cool about Shayna? I really think that if WWE let her, she would come back and defend that belt.
Oh God, she would, yeah.
She gives credit and she responds to every AIW women's title tweet, and I think that's so awesome about her. That she is like, she's still joking about it, she's still showing it, and you don't get that everywhere. And I think if Ziggy did challenge for it, man, KO talks about AIW all the time. Who knows? Maybe he would be like, listen, let her go to Cleveland and get this belt off her hands and let's film it. You know what I mean? Like, who even knows? But that would be a great concept if Ziggy did win.
Could you imagine, like, the full on, when crowds come back, full on, the pop just for Shayna to show up first off.
Remember Mike Awesome and Taz? I mean, WWE was not opposed to it back then. Who knows? Maybe they would be like, yeah, go ahead.
So the pop for that, just for her to show up after the challenge, then the pop if Ziggy wins. Oh my God!
It would be next level. It'd be nice to dream of, and I honestly, in this day and age, who knows? Triple H could be like, or Vince could be like, go. Kevin Owens would be like, hey, these guys deserve it. Let her go over there and do it, and then she goes over and they film it for for Peacock. I mean. By the way, I hate saying that now that they're on Peacock. That kills me. But wouldn't that be amazing? The pop and the love that AIW would get to be allowed to do that. I mean, it would just, I don't know. That's just wishful thinking. That's like 10 Michelob Ultra Seltzers deep right now. But
so the slang for Peacock is just the cock now. They're on the cock. So that's where it's at. It's just what I've been told.
If you want to see it, you have to look at the cock.
That's right. Watch the cock. Watch WWE.
But yeah, that would be, I mean, but also if Dom won and took it to the tag titles, if Colin won and took tag titles. I mean, man, there's a lot of possibilities, and it is great to think about and know that there is 10 weeks at least right now of shows to run.
Or hell, going back, if Derek won, what if he didn't go for a singles title? What if he went for the tag titles?
Derek is going for the singles title. It is Derek's turn. That's just, I mean, it's his turn. Look at all these guys that have run through the production, and Derek is the guy. He's left. He's he's the maestro, and Magnum and Frankie and Eddie and Danhausen, they all moved, and they have all been working hard in one way or another in different locations, and the brains of the operation, and and I don't know if you guys have seen Derek lately, but he's jacked up. It's time for him to step out and really get that singles belt. That's just, I mean, he's to me a guy like Derek. You remember SmackDown years 04 to 08. They would bring in a new guy to win the United States title every time, like Carlito, Mr. Kennedy, and listen, don't get me started, but I'm talking gimmick and body type. But do you remember Muhammad Hassan? They brought in guys who all kind of fit the same body type. They were kind of lean, but had some bulk to them. The minute they came on the scene, their vignettes were really strong. The minute they came on the scene, they won the United States title almost as a jumping point. So Carlito, Mr. Kennedy, and then there was a few other guys who came right in and won the belts. Derek is a guy that you would look at and go, this guy fits this mold to start right now. If you were going to put the Intense title, who could do death matches, who could do no rules, who can do regular wrestling, you would say, okay, a guy like Derek, he belongs in this category and can take this belt tomorrow, and I'd be happy having him run with it. And I think that's where AIW has a lot of guys who are mid to upper card that can take that belt and run with it, and I think Derek is the top of that one.
You mentioned all the members of the production, and you forgot Colby Red. How dare you?
I am a newer AIW fan. I don't remember him. I only remember the guys that I saw when I was there, and it was those guys. I don't remember Colby Red. I
mean, he was in it for 4 months.
I think I forgot Frankie actually, but Frankie.
No, you said. I believe you said Frankie.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I think it's time. I think it. Come on. I don't know what it I know you guys have your favorites, but I just doesn't it make sense? Don't you look at Derek and go, he's a guy like Carlito who we could give one of these belts to, right?
Yeah.
What'd you say? Yeah,
I feel it. Yeah.
Yeah, when you always looked at IC title feuds, you saw Jake, Macho Man, Roddy Piper, these guys who went from mid upper to upper and were ready to explode, right? So Macho Man won the title. Jake just didn't even need a belt. You had a guy who could feud with anybody from the IC title all the way up to the world title. And I think if you position Derek that way with Ziggy and, you do it right, you have a guy who can compete mid-level to upper level with any of it. I just need to see it in action. In my head, I just need to see it. You know what I mean?
We kind of mentioned Trey, but PB Smooth too.
But he's a heavyweight. I mean, he's a classic.
Oh, I'm talking about people who could win. We talked about Trey. Fucking PB. We're talking about a different PB than the PB that won the Absolute title and had it for 2 shows?
How many? He had it for that show where he did the bad tombstone, right?
Yeah.
And
then he lost it the next show.
Then he lost it at Slumber Party.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's different. Yeah, you're right. And he's a pure heavyweight. And if you put him in there with guys a lot smaller than him, he should get those biggins bucks, basically.
I mean, and then we go back to what we said earlier. I mean, he has the benefit of, Jocelyn can be there for him, and as the rest of 40 Acres too.
Yeah, I keep forgetting about that giant. Now 40 Acres has 4 of them, so they have a really big faction where he can, with Jocelyn and him running. Jocelyn really, really impressed me at Thunder in Indianapolis. She was, I mean, some of the stuff that they did with her and that, especially with the cement everywhere, and she still took some of those bumps, that was amazing.
So many possibilities. I mean, we could even see Kaplan. I'd love to see Kaplan win. That just for the moment, just Kaplan. Everybody loves Kaplan.
I honestly have never. I've seen him in one match. I saw him at Gauntlet for the Gold 17 in 2017 with Jeff Jarrett there, and he came out, and that was the last time I ever saw Kaplan wrestle. So this is going to be exciting if he's on this card, where on this show, where I can actually see him in the ring and kind of do his thing.
All right, let's start to wrap this show up. Any final thoughts on this tournament, guys? Let me start with Charly Butters.
Oh man, I'm just excited to get AIW back and go along for the ride. How
about you, Josh?
Yeah, I'm with Charlie, and I'm excited to cover all this stuff with you guys and see how it unfolds. It's almost like a brand new movie, and we all get a chance to watch it together and then react to it, and that's the best part about it. So I think we're in for a treat.
Some of my favorite memories in history has been watching movies in the movie theater, and then like my friends that I watched it with going out to eat, and then just talking about the movie. And here we're going to get the same thing, but we're going to watch the show and then we're going to react to it and throw our pretty instant reactions down. Like, we're not going to have a whole lot of time. Like, right at the first episode, we're going to have a couple days, but other than that, we're talking an hour after, or I should say right after the episode is done, we're going to have our episode going, which
it's as close to a live recap as you can get. It's a very cool idea by you. I think it's very cool. You get a real chance to almost get a live recap.
All right, let's go over plugs. Start with Butters.
I have a podcast, IWTV Guide, and you can check that out at IWTV Guide. We do a review every week from a show that's on IWTV, and then we've also been doing interviews lately. I just did one with Dominic Guarini last week, so check that out. And that's all I got.
How about you, Jay Gold?
Nope, just JGold12 on Twitter. And you may see the Benefactors logo pop up on a few things here and there, different shows, but just glad to finally get wrestling back, and can't wait to see all you guys in person soon. Cannot wait to give you guys a big vaccinated hug.
And deep soul kisses.
That's right. Deep soul kisses for everyone.
And of course, you can find myself at jsummers330 on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, much like you can find this show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Facebook.com/WrestlingCheers, Twitter.com/WrestlingCheers, Instagram.com/WrestlingCheers. Email, if you so choose a desire, WrestlingCheers@gmail.com, and we have the merch store over at whatamaneuver.net. Like I said earlier in the show, please rate, review, and subscribe your ever listen to this fine podcast, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, or Podbean, WrestlingCheers.podbean.com, and you can find all the links for all the social media and every place you can find the show in our link tree in this episode's show notes. You can also check out our friends on the Trending Topics Network, such as All Beer Inside, Eurovision Showcase, The Spanish Announce Table, and Wrestling with Altitude. Check out our other podcast friends, such as Pod Van Dam, Super Fantastic Podcast, It's Evolution Baby, The IndieCast, Sobros Network, Biff Radio, Off the Hop Rope, Game Marks Podcast, We Like Sports Podcast, Powerbomb Jitsu, The Spotlight Series, Fully Posable, Doing the Favor, Positively Pro Wrestling, IWTV Guide, At Odds with Wrestling, Best in the World Podcast, Marks with Mikes, Dark Match Podcast, and Porch Talk. Check out our other non-podcasting friends, such as The Store Jobber, The Savage Stash, The Mystery Men, Redline Radio, Mouse's Wrestling Adventures, VHS Party Tonight on Instagram, Happy Hour with Steve Guy, The Co-Host Wrestling Show, Good Company, Toy Hio, Time Capsule Toys, Stay Tough, Smokin' Jay's Barbecue, Wrestle Void, Midwest Territory, Southern Underground Pro, and the official graphic designer of Wrestling Cheers, Moy Boy Designs. That will do it for us here on Wrestling Cheers, where everybody knows your name, especially when you're holding the biggins bucks. Later.
It's the wrestling cheers. Get up on your feet, brightening your day in the middle of the week. And you gotta love the show. Yeah, you know it holds a title for the best podcast. Talking wrestling in Ohio. Finishing a cold one, take a load off. We ain't all about the prohibition like Josh, so we cheers. And then we sit back. Other shows are in the trash, kinda like they Nick Stapp. Like the name is Matt Justice, wearing all the gold. Wrestling Cheers is coming to a close. The #1 podcast going in the game. And one day everybody's gonna know the name. It's the Wrestling Cheers. This is Platinum Max, signing off. Ohio, good night. The world, good night. We love you. We'll see you next week.